Sermon this morning is titled Turning the Other Cheek, and I think we're all very familiar with this saying from Jesus, this command from Jesus to his disciples to turn the other cheek. And there are very few Christians throughout the last 2,000 years that have really taken that to heart. Some groups have. They believe pacifism is what Jesus is commanding there, and so they refuse to enter into any kind of conflict or even defend themselves when attacked or defend family members. They say, nope, Jesus wants me to not do that. I'm not going to talk too much about that today, one side or the other. Hopefully, I'm going to bring to you something that is new to you, something that you haven't heard before about what Jesus intends for his audience to understand from this. There was a book I read several years ago that has really helped shape my hermeneutics or my interpretation of Scripture. And it is a book called Echo. I forgot the name all of a sudden. Something about echoes. But anyways, I knew it right down there. I came up here, I forgot it. I should have wrote it down. I can't even think of the author's name now. But the concept is that when the people in the New Testament, when they are saying something, especially something that sounds different, unique, they are oftentimes quoting from the Old Testament passages. And it's sort of like when we use a quote from a movie today. We know what someone's talking about when they say, "May the force be with you." They're not saying, "May the force be with you." They're pointing you to that movie, right? Or if they say something, go ahead, punk, make my day. They don't literally mean that. They want you to picture that scene. And that's what the writers of the New Testament, I believe, are doing in many cases. And I believe Jesus is doing that with this passage. So we'll discuss that at the very end of this. Conflict resolution is one thing that doesn't happen when you turn the other cheek. That conflict is usually still there. In fact, you're the recipient. If you're turning the cheek, you're the recipient of that conflict, and there's really no justice served. Dueling with pistols or swords was an excellent way of resolving conflicts. It was very fair. Unless you were an expert in that weapon of choice, it might not be all that fair. But in 1804, Alexander Hamilton, one of our founding fathers, he actually served under George Washington in his cabinet. I'm sure many of you are familiar with him. Aaron Burr and Alexander Hamilton, this was the sitting vice president of the United States. They had a duel with pistols, resulting in the death of Hamilton. This was over public disagreement. This was over insults in public. This is how they resolved that conflict. It's believed that Hamilton was really not going to shoot at Burr, and in fact, he just shot into the air. But Burr took it seriously and killed Hamilton. In 1806, Andrew Jackson, who would later become the 7th President of the United States, had a duel with an attorney named Charles Dickinson. This was over a contract dispute over a horse, which then led to some insults about about Jackson's wife. I assume associated with a horse, probably. In 1870, in France, Edward Manet, the French painter, and Edmond Duranty, who was a novelist and an art critic, had a duel with swords that resulted in a slightly wounded Duranty. And the wound satisfied Manet, and the duel was resolved. The conflict was resolved. Duels have been a way to resolve conflict between individuals throughout history. A duel was often the result of one party being insulted by another party, or it was a breach of contract, perhaps. In some way, they were defending their honor. That's what they believed. Honor, respect, reputation, justice, these were things that they believed were worth dying for or killing someone over. And it might sound archaic today, or it sounds like something only the unsophisticated or backwoods or hillbillies might do. Maybe the closest thing we have today to duels are the inner city gangs with the drive-by shootings. You disrespect them, they're going to shoot at you. But in the age where duels were an acceptable form of ending disputes or regaining honor, they were reserved only for upper-class citizens, for the sophisticates, for the aristocracy, for politicians, for people that had something to defend. They had honor and a name and a reputation that they wanted to defend. The duel served a purpose, to regain that honor or to defend it. And like I said before, they were an excellent way to resolve conflicts. The person you had the conflict with is no longer living. Or they chickened out, they backed out, and your honor is restored. Or they recanted, which was often the case. Many times a duel was canceled and the person apologized or retracted their statement or made the wrong right. It was all about honor, defending your honor, not backing down. It was about pride, not to be viewed as a coward. And that's important to men. I don't know how important it is to women. But the reason it's important to men is because we think it's important to women. We don't want to be viewed as wimpy or a coward. So we're quick to defend our honor when someone insults us or insults our family, or someone harms us or harms our family, or someone takes from us or takes from those that we love. We take offense when someone insults us. They insult our family, maybe our country, our political views. Maybe they don't like the truck that we drive. Maybe they make fun of our favorite restaurant or a movie that we like. We take offense to being cut off in traffic. At least I do. What I'm describing here are things that I am guilty of. We take offense when someone trespasses on our property. The way that our house is situated, right across from a beautiful gas station. We get to look at this gas station all day. But our neighbors like to go to the gas station, and they don't like to walk around. So many times they cut through our yard, and I'm like the dogs. I'm at the window, barking at them. We take offense when people turn around in our driveway. Right? You go, what's that guy turning around my driveway for? We're ready to confront them. Oh, it's just the delivery guy. It's just the Amazon guy. That's okay. We take offense when our neighbors are too loud, when they're setting off fireworks on July 7th. We take offense when someone drives too fast in front of our house, right? Slow down! We take offense when someone messes with our stuff, our belongings, when they touch our purse. This isn't my experience, but I've seen this at church. Someone moved a purse and they got punched for it. It wasn't this church. We feel personally violated when we are taken advantage of. When we discover that we were charged too much at the grocery store, we're looking at that receipt, we go, I knew those apples were not $7 a pound. We take that personally. We feel violated when we don't get the correct change, like somebody got something over on me. That's how I feel. We feel violated when there's an error on our bill, when we have to pay a processing fee, or are charged extra for using our credit cards. Am I alone in this? Okay, good. We feel especially violated if our belongings are taken from us. If you've ever had your house broken into and things taken out, my parents recently experienced that. You feel violated. These are normal feelings. It's normal to not want people to walk across your property. That's normal. It's normal to not want your stuff being taken from you, stuff that you purchase, stuff that you love, being taken by someone else. Wanting to get satisfaction from the person that insulted you or disrespected you or violated you is perfectly normal. It is not a defect in our character. It doesn't mean that you are being unchristian if you want justice. However, as a disciple of Jesus, we are required to turn the other cheek. We are required to take insults, to not retaliate. We are required to take offense, not respond. Disciples of Jesus are commanded to love mercy, to be peacemakers. And in Matthew it says to be meek. This is all part of loving our enemies. And it is what Jesus commands of those that call themselves his disciples. Those that obey him are the ones who will live their lives built upon that solid rock, obedience. They will not be destroyed when the flood or when the final judgment comes. Jesus says this, "But to you who are willing to listen," that is, obey, "I say, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who hurt you. If someone slaps you on one cheek, offer the other cheek also. If someone demands your coat, offer your shirt also. Give to anyone who asks, and when things are taken away from you, don't try to get them back. Do to others as you would like them to do to you." In other words, no fighting, no dueling. Be a peacemaker. Love mercy. Exhibit meekness. That is so difficult. This is all tied together with loving our enemies. That is, those that hate us. I read a Facebook post recently. It says this: "I don't care if you're black, white, straight, bisexual, gay, lesbian, short, tall, fat, skinny, rich, or poor. If you're nice to me, I'll be nice to you." It's that simple. And I think everybody goes, yeah, that's pretty good. I could live by that. That's pretty good. In other words, it's the content of their character. It's not their race or their physical features or their sexual preferences that matters to me. If you're nice to me, I'll be nice to you. Or if you respect me, I will respect you. Jesus says that his disciples will take it even further. That's not good enough. They will be nice to those that are not nice to them. They will respect those who don't respect them. They will love those who hate them. Those that have wronged us. Those that have turned around in our driveway, I will love that person. Those that steal from us. Those that insult our family or cut us off in traffic. Those that even physically harm us. We are to love them. Jesus goes on. He says, "If you love only those who love you, why should you get credit for that? Even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good only to those who do good to you, why should you get credit? Even sinners do that much. And if you lend money only to those who can repay you, why should you get credit? Even sinners will lend to other sinners for a full return." Jesus is not making this easy. Now I'm expected to lend money to people that can't pay me back. That's like a gift. That's like just giving the money away. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Being a disciple of Jesus is not easy. Entering his kingdom is not easier. It's easier for some than for others. Jesus makes that point later on. It will take supernatural power to transform us into the type of people that Jesus commands us to be. Jesus says, love your enemies. Do good to them. Lend to them without expecting to be repaid. That's an act of love. Giving to people that hate you. Being kind to those that hate you. Loving those that hate you. Not retaliating when those that hate you insult you or steal from you or lie about you or physically harm you. Jesus says, then your reward from heaven will be very great, and you will truly be acting as children of the Most High, for he is kind to those who are unthankful and wicked. You must be compassionate just as your Father is compassionate. I know for the last 2 weeks we've had the same message. It's a hard message. Jesus says the reason we behave this way is because this is the way that God behaves. We do this because we have experienced this from God. He's talking about mercy. This is all about being merciful to those that do not deserve mercy. It is a testimony of the mercy and the loving kindness that we have received from God when we do this towards other people, especially towards those that hate us. The question, of course, is can I defend myself or my family or my neighbor or my country or my property when I am attacked? I believe that Jesus is speaking mostly about everyday conflicts or disputes between individuals. Those are commonplace. How we respond to our neighbors or those on the street that wrong us, that's what this is about. Because of our pride, we take disrespect seriously. And in many cases, maybe most cases, the violence that we see around us is from someone disrespecting another person and retaliation. Insults, even sometimes unintentional insults, cause retaliation. Taking something that isn't yours, in other words, not respecting someone's private property, that causes conflict. And Jesus wants us to avoid these things. He's teaching his disciples to overlook these things because they happen all of the time. He's teaching them that peace is better than repayment, better than revenge. Sometimes conflicts are unavoidable. A property line dispute. A neighbor wants to put up a fence on what he believes is his property when in fact it is your property. What do you do in that case? That can be a major problem. Some people will run right over and stake their claim and say, "This is my property," and they would knock their fence over. Doesn't mean you can't discuss it, what Jesus says. Doesn't mean you don't order a survey so that you can prove that your property line is actually there. It means that you will not be hot-headed when you discuss it. It means you do everything you can to resolve the situation peacefully. And in the end, if your neighbor still insists that it is his property, this is where it is very difficult. What do you do? Most conflicts can be resolved without violence. Many conflicts can be avoided by minding your own business. Many conflicts can be avoided by responding calmly. Many conflicts can be avoided by keeping your mouth shut completely. If you want to know how to avoid conflicts, read Proverbs. The Proverbs are filled with excellent advice on how to live your lives and how to be at peace with your neighbors and those around you, even those that hate you. At the beginning of Proverbs, it says this: "These are the Proverbs of Solomon, David's son, king of Israel. Their purpose is to teach people wisdom and discipline, to help them understand the insights of the wise. Their purpose is to teach people to live disciplined and successful lives, to help them do what is right, just, and fair. These proverbs will give insight to the simple, knowledge and discernment, even to the young." If you want to know how to avoid conflicts in your life, many conflicts, read Proverbs. Begin living them. We are merciful because we have experienced God's mercy. That's Jesus' point. We turn the other cheek because we have experienced the love of God. Jesus tells his disciples and his audience that God has shown them mercy, that he has been kind to those that hate him. Now his audience, which are the children of Israel, some of them are disciples of Jesus, some are just people who are curious, who are listening to Jesus teach this. One of their questions might be, when did God show the people of Israel mercy? We're under Roman occupation right now. We aren't powerful like we used to be. In fact, our ancestors experienced the judgment of God, so extreme that we haven't even recovered from it yet. Where is this mercy that God is talking about? And in what way has God loved those who hate him? And who among us hates God? They should be asking themselves that question. Jesus is talking about God's incredible patience with Israel and the judgment that Israel has experienced. Their ancestors, the people of Israel, have slapped God in the face over and over, and God has been very, very patient with them, although they have experienced his judgment. They abused his mercy. They took advantage of his kindness. They even robbed him. In Malachi, it says this: "Will man rob God? Yet you are robbing me. But you say, 'How have we robbed you?' in your tithes and contributions. You are cursed with a curse, for you are robbing me, the whole nation of you. They have taken from God. The people of Israel, their ancestors, are the ones that Jesus is describing. They are God's enemies. They wouldn't admit to be his enemies. They would probably deny that they were his enemies, but their actions prove that they hate him. They disobey him. They do not honor him. They mock him. God has poured out his judgment on them. They should be asking, how has God been kind to us? If we are his enemies, in what way has he been kind to us? That phrase, turn the other cheek, I believe is the key. It is that echo to the Old Testament passages. Lamentations chapter 3. This is a book of poetry, or lament, written by Jeremiah. This is after the fall of Israel, after the destruction of Jerusalem, the destruction of the temple, after God's judgment has been poured out upon the people of Israel because of their wickedness. Jeremiah was the one that witnessed the devastation that God brought upon the children of Israel. He was there when God's mercy ran out, when judgment came. And that is the warning to them and to us, that God will only be mocked, ignored, disobeyed, despised for so long. Eventually, judgment comes. Even upon those in his covenant. I would say especially upon those in his covenant, because they should know better. Jeremiah warned the king. He warned his advisors. He warned the priests, and he warned the people of Judah that God's mercy was coming to an end and judgment was coming. But the people ignored Jeremiah. They ridiculed him. They abused him. They even threw him into a pit so that he would die. And after the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple, Jeremiah writes this book, Lamentations. It is a poem. It is a lament, a cry. He is mourning for his countrymen, for his home, for his land. In his lament, Jeremiah grieves the loss of life, but he is thankful that God has finally ended their wickedness. He is torn between justice and mercy. He longs for God's justice for those that have harmed him and ignored God. He wants them to be punished, but he does not want Israel to be destroyed. His real desire, although it is too late at this point, is for the people to turn from their wickedness, to turn from their sin. Lamentations is a warning to the remnant, those that have survived, those that have been sent away into exile. It's a warning to the Jews in Jesus' day. It's a warning to us today. In chapter 3, Jeremiah describes his darkest moment. That's when he was lowered into the pit, and they expected him to die there. Placed there by the people that he came to warn. He is the one, Jeremiah was the one that was doing right. He was the one obeying God by delivering the warnings. He was commanded to do that, and he obeyed God. But injustice and mistreatment have come upon him, done by the very ones that he came to save. He says it feels like God is punishing him. He has obeyed God. Why is he being punished? He feels like God has abandoned him, as if God has forsaken him. I'm going to read some passages from that chapter, and they'll be on the screen. Jeremiah says, I am the one who has seen the afflictions that come from the rod of the Lord's anger. He has led me into darkness, shutting out all light. He has turned his hand against me again and again all day long. This is the man who is obedient to God. He says, God is against me. Why am I experiencing this? He says, he has buried me in a dark place like those long dead. He has walled me in and I cannot escape. He has bound me in heavy chains, and though I cry and shout, he has shut out my prayers. I hope you can see that this is a messianic psalm or messianic lament.
He shot his arrows deep into my heart. My own people laugh at me. All day long they sing their mocking songs. He has filled me with bitterness and given me a bitter cup of sorrow to drink. You remember Jesus asking for that cup to be removed from him. Yet I still dare to hope when I remember this. There's still hope, even though it appears like God has forsaken me. The faithful love of the Lord never ends. His mercies never cease. Even in his distress, Jeremiah says, God's mercies never cease. Great is his faithfulness. His mercies begin afresh each morning. I say to myself, the Lord is my inheritance. Therefore, I will hope in him. That's where his hope comes from, the Lord. He hopes in the Lord. He said, I might not even be saved from this pit, but I know that the Lord will bring justice. He will save me. It says, the Lord is good to those who depend on him, to those who search for him. So it is good to wait quietly for salvation from the Lord. He says, and it is good for people to submit at an early age to the yoke of his discipline. Let them sit alone in silence beneath the Lord's demands. Let them lie face down in the dust, for there may be hope at last. And he says, let them turn the other cheek to those who strike them and accept the insults of their enemies. I believe Jesus is pointing his audience and us to this passage. In this passage, we see a picture of the suffering servant, not Jeremiah, but Jesus, the one who was sent to deliver a message of mercy to us, the one who came to reconcile God's enemies with God, the one who was obedient and then punished for our redemption. God's mercy towards us, towards those that have insulted him, those that have robbed from him, those that have slapped him in the face, those that have whipped his back, those that tore out his beard, those that spit in his face, those that mocked him by placing a crown of thorns on his head. God has shown his love to all of them, to all of his enemies. And this is what Jesus means when he says that when we turn the other cheek, we are truly acting as children of the Most High. We are behaving the way that God behaves. We are to love mercy. We are commanded to turn the other cheek when we are harmed or insulted. We are commanded not to even go after those that have stolen from us. We are to behave as Jeremiah did and to pray for those that hate us. To be concerned for those that not only wish to harm us, but those that actually do harm us. We are to wait upon God's justice, hopeful that those that have harmed us will turn from their wickedness and they will receive the same kind of mercy that we have received from God. It is because of God's mercy that we have been forgiven and cleansed, which allows his Spirit to live inside of us, which empowers us to be the type of people that Jesus commands us to be. That is only possible because of Jesus. It is only possible because of the crucifixion and the resurrection. Our God is merciful. And as his children, we are required to turn the other cheek, to be kind to those that hate us, kind to those that wish to harm us. Let's pray.